Okay, here we are, Christmas Eve, getting ready with making some sausage rolls.
How many dozen do you want?
Here we are, getting ready to make one of our family's holiday special treats, our meals. And this came from my grandmother, Catherine Basile, and Tori has joined us today and would like to learn how to make it. And so we're going to kind of go through the process and the ingredients of what's needed to make the Italian sausage roll. This was something that Grandma made during Christmas Eve and always was a treat. So it was something that was special. We usually never had it throughout the year. This was something that was only served at Christmas Eve dinner. This was more of an appetizer. It wasn't something that was the main course, but it was an appetizer set out with soup and little pizza bites and other things to kind of snack on before the main meal. Usually this was set out before church. Then we would go to Mass and then come back, and then after Mass we would have the full meal. So let's talk about the ingredients. And first off, of course, we have our sausage, and this could be either mild or spicy. Grandma always made it with a mild or sweet sausage, but that's your preference. Next we have the olives, black olives soaked in the Italian olive oil. So these are cured olives that need to be pitted. And then finally we have your choice of pizza dough. Now we're kind of taking some shortcuts here. So I can tell you a little history that the sausage always came from Indelicado's meat market over on Lafayette Street. This was something that everybody in the neighborhood went to. This was the local meat market that you could get your sausage. So Grandma would go there. The olives were purchased at a local market, and then the dough was made from scratch. So Grandma, and really this isn't Grandma's thing. This is really Aunt Josie's contribution or recipe to Christmas Eve dinner. So Aunt Josie, with her hands, with arthritis, would painstakingly make these, roll these before Christmas Eve, and bring those over to Grandma's house for us to enjoy. So she would make the dough. Today we've gotten Botto's dough. Botto's is a local Italian market here in Swedesboro. But Aunt Josie would make the dough, purchase the sausage, purchase the olives, and really that's all we need. So it's a very simple process, but you're going to get the flavor from, number one, the better the Italian sausage that you can get, the better the quality of product that you're going to make. Also, the Italian olives have to be Italian black olives that have been cured in that, preferably the best olive oil that you can get, because that's where you're going to get your salt in it. Your real taste is coming from those olives. So the flavor is going to come from the olives, and it's not something that you can omit. Again, we only have 2 items of the recipe. So some people may say, well, I don't like the olives, or I don't want you to put the olives in mine. The olives are really the flavor that you're going to get from this meal. It's something that adds, it's being soaked up by the dough and contributes really the whole flavor profile to the
when it's rolled in there and bakes in the oven, the flavor really spreads throughout all of the dough.
Yep.
And it combines, the saltiness of the olives combines with the savory
of the
sausage.
Exactly. Now the dough, yes, you can, we've taken some shortcuts and liberties with the dough, so you can, if you want to make this quick, again, the precedent was that this was something that was very expensive to make, I was told as a child. This was something that was painstaking to make, that it's labor intensive. So we have taken some liberties, and you can purchase pizza dough in the canister, and you can, you know, make these very quickly. We have link sausage here, but if you get it out of the link, again, that saves some times. The olives do need to be pitted, so if you can find the olives that are already pitted, that would save you some time. But again, this is as simple as it is. So we're going to kind of get into it here, and we're going to show you the steps on how to make it. Again, family recipe, and I'm making air quotes. I don't know the origin of the old country, of where it came from or how it came about. I can only tell you that my Aunt Josephine Graceffo was the one that contributed this to the family.
Which is Grandma's sister.
Grandma's sister, yep, on the Avola side. And they brought this, and we truly only had it at Christmas Eve. So that's the backstory of this meal that we're about to prepare. And like I said, it can be a meal in itself. So, you know, when the kids were small, we would make this and kind of have this and for Christmas Day, or, you know, throughout the year, I would kind of make this maybe a couple of times. But it's something quick, and it stores nicely in the refrigerator, and you can continue to pick on it throughout the week. So we're going to go ahead and start putting the olives together, and then we'll come back and kind of show you how we lay out the dough and the process of rolling these up. So we'll be right back. You guys watching Grandma do it?
Yep. Yeah. Pizza. Sticky.
You got it? Flour.
On your hands, on your hand. Do this.
Peter, sandwich is ready.
All right, so we got the sausage taken apart. We have the olives de-pitted, and we're about ready to get the dough out. And the big thing with the dough is you want to put some flour down on your area where you're going to be preparing the dough, so that it doesn't stick, of course, to the surface. So just a little bit of flour, and then you're going to stretch your dough out, and we're probably going to make these the size of about 6-inch squares. So you want to just pull your dough, get some air into the dough. Again, this is let's call it a homemade pizza dough. You can use the store-bought dough. If you do that, of course, it's going to be not as pliable. So you just want to understand your dough and be able to work with it. So being homemade dough, this is already raised. It's pliable. I'm just stretching it out here so that I have a good work area to work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into the slices, and then we're going to be able to start forming our product. Sure that you have a good work area here. So nice and big and nice and flat. Yep, that's it. Stretch yours out. All right.
It's not staying.
Yeah, you just have to, again, work it, pull it, stretch it. Now again, with the real dough or the homemade dough, it's going to be, the consistency is going to want to retract back. So, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of your sausage, okay, again, that we've taken out of the, and you're going to smear it, let's use that as a word of the day, smear it across the dough, covering all of your dough except the edges. Okay? So all sides of the dough get covered. And you want to be generous but you don't want there to be a big pocket of meat. So you want there to be an even spread across the dough. Okay? Yeah, that's good. That's good. You don't want big clumps because again, this is going into the oven raw. It's going to be inside the dough to cook, and we want to make sure that we don't have any big chunks that are going to be raw when we pull it out. So evenly spread, and now we're going to take our olives and be very cautious that there are no pits. So you want to place these randomly through across on top and across the whole dough and meat setup. Okay? And it's just random because as we roll it, each layer as we roll will have incorporated into it some of the olives. Okay? So now, once you have your olives laid out, you're going to take your first layer, and depending on the way that your dough is, you want to, sometimes it depends on which way you're going to roll from. Okay? So you're going to take that first layer, kind of tuck that in nice and tight, and then simply roll it up and making it tight as you go, pushing those olives into the dough until you get to the very end. And then the very end, we pinch the dough together. And if you have a little bit of the flour on there, it's going to be hard. And as we go to bake them, we're going to lay our seam side down on the cookie sheet. So you want to pinch the ends and you want to pinch your seal, and then we'll lay that down at the bottom. So that's our first step to putting it together, and we can set these off to the side and continue with the rest of them.
Sheet.
Yep. Roll them out on the cookie sheet, and then just with your towel or a little paper towel, you're going to spread your olive oil over the cookie sheet very liberally, and then save your towel because your excess olive oil is going to be what we put on top of the sausage rolls. The cookie sheets are all oiled up, ready for baking, and you just want to make sure they are going to expand a little bit, so you want to make sure that you leave room on the cookie sheet in between, so when they do grow a little bit, they have room to expand. So it probably could get 8 on a cookie sheet. And that's usually the amount that you'll get out of one batch or one bag of dough. They're looking pretty good. Tor, what do you think?
I think they look delicious.
Yeah.
I'm excited to eat them.
When's the last time you had one? Was it last Christmas?
Last Christmas.
Okay. What are some of your memories about Grandma making them, or?
Yeah, I remember Grandma making them. I remember making them every year and hating being stuck with pitting the olives, but now that I'm older, it's something I appreciate.
Yeah.
And the wedding soup, eating the wedding soup. Oh, the camera's on me. Okay. Eating the wedding soup with the sausage rolls on Christmas Eve, and having wedding soup for the next 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, there's always enough.
Yeah.
And how about Grandma B's Christmas Eve? Do you remember that at all?
Vaguely. Yeah, I remember Christmas Eve at the big house and putting out the decals on the window every year. Dipping
Right.
them. She would give me the bowl of water.
Yeah.
I would dip them in there and then hang them up on the window.
Yep.
And
Putting the little decals on the front window.
window, and there'd be snow outside, and
Well, yeah, it's Auburn. Of course, there's snow outside. There was snow at Halloween.
yeah, and I remember your dad dressing up as Santa Claus and coming down and handing out gifts.
Yeah, that was another one of the traditions at Christmas Eve is, somebody would be nominated or selected to be Santa for the year and hand out the gifts. And like I said, there was a tradition where we would have the 7 fishes back in the day and then go to midnight mass. And as the family grew and that, kids couldn't stay awake or wait till we had dinner, or presents, things changed. So they went with having sausage for Christmas Eve dinner and potato salad. And the potato salad originated from Ann and Andy, who was a neighbor to Grandma B.
Polish.
And they were a German couple. And they were invited to join us at Christmas Eve, and so they would come over and they contributed their German potato salad. So that was kind of a commingling of true, authentic, or ethnic cultures, coming together at one table, and Grandma would incorporate the potato salad into her Italian menu and celebrate Christmas Eve with them. So Ann and Andy were always at Grandma's house for Christmas Eve. Of course, Aunt Josie, Uncle Joe, and Jeannie. Grandpa would be in charge of making the sausage, and he would. They had a couple of stoves going, so the upstairs stove was mostly for the sausage that we would eat, at Christmas Eve, and then they had another stove going downstairs where they were baking cookies and doing all kind of other stuff. So Grandpa would be on, kitchen duty, going up and down the stairs, checking on both of the stoves, making sure everything was okay on top of
There was one in the basement?
all of our other duties. Yeah, so usually the cookies were cooked downstairs, but sometimes they would bring the sausage downstairs and utilize that, depending on how big the crew was. So if the Graceffos were coming in from California, they would need both stoves going, or both ovens going, and so they would utilize the downstairs stove and the upstairs stove. So it was, they had quite the get together. Sometimes
And
they
the
would
long
have,
table. The
oh yeah,
table in the
sometimes
in the,
they would have 15, 20 people, if not more. You figure, we were 6, they were 3, Aunt Josie was 3. So, and Ann and Andy, and then any other relatives that would stop by. So that was Grandma's thing, was Christmas Eve, putting together a meal, for the family and getting us all together. So that's what she enjoyed. So again, the sausage rolls was just really an appetizer, to kind of put out before the meal and before church, just to have something quick to kind of snack on. Pizza was always out, the wedding soup was out, there was always fruits and nuts and cheeses that were out on the table as well. And the big long table was always set up as kind of a buffet where you could help yourself to the appetizers, and then that was cleared off, and then it was prepared, dinner was prepared. So very cool, very good memory, and let's get back to making our own here.
How did Aunt Josie think of this?
I don't know, she just, when you're poor, you make do with what you got. She has sausage. We leave this here so we could use it.
Well, it's kind of like a calzone, I guess.
Yeah, well,
Maybe she got the idea kind of like that.
you know, the place of a sandwich. When
Yeah.
you're younger, nobody had cold cuts. You always thought
Yeah.
of something.
But she didn't do it all the time. It was
No,
only
no,
just for
just
Christmas.
holiday
Yeah, just for
time.
holidays.
Just a holiday time.
How do you
Yeah,
get rid of air bubbles?
a little flour.
Little flowers.
She would make the dough by scratch, right?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Does that look good?
Yeah, that looks good. Oh, see? With your thumbs, like I showed you. Got it with the thumbs, honey. But you're doing okay. You're doing okay now. Okay.
And just little clumps of meat. Like how we did our day somewhere. Yo, I worked hard on Can you make some without the olives?
Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, make some without the olives.
All right. The first batch has come out and they look fantastic. So they've cooked for about 40 minutes and golden brown on the top is what you want to see. So as you can see, they've expanded a little bit and maybe have touched a little bit. So you want to stagger them as you put them in, but they look perfect. So let's cut one open and see exactly how they smell and taste. All right, let's cut one open here. Just perfect. Perfectly cooked. You can see that sausage is brown, juicy, and the olives are throughout the sausage roll. Perfectly done. Thank you, Grandma B. All right, Tori, they just came out of the oven. Let's give them a taste and see how we did.
All right.
Wow. The sausage is done perfect.
And the olives give it a nice salty taste.
Yep, you can taste those olives all the way through. Again, when you're rolling them, make sure you spread out those olives, and you did it perfectly, Tori. So I think
Thanks.
Grandma
And Josie.
and Aunt Josie would have been very proud of us. Bon appetit! Until next time, please join us in the Basile kitchen when we make another Italian favorite. Italian wedding soup will be our next
Oh,
video.
exciting.
So bon appetit from the Basiles. Thank you very much for joining us.
Ciao,
Enjoy.
di cucina Basile.
Very good.